Okay, welcome to Monday morning. And looks like we're doing some budget review work, so we'll get prepared for that. I'll just turn it over to Kathy.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So this morning on our budget management review, we have juvenile detention, which is our first financial. And they have very little in the way of revenues that are coming in other than the being funded by the general fund. So they have, the largest one is their goods and services budgeted at $55,500. They've brought in so far through the beginning of November, $48,536,000. So they're on track for their budget. As far as their expenses, which is next, you have a question?
And the revenue goods and services means?
Those are actual charges for services. I'm not sure if they bill.
It's kind of like in the adult jail where?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Then they also, on their expenses, their largest expense, of course, is personnel, budgeted at $2,550,772. Their year-to-date actuals is $1,032,396. Based upon a 12-month target, they are below their target for this point in time a little bit because of vacancies that they have, but they also have compensating overtime. Otherwise, they probably would be a lot less compared to budget. So the target, they're below, and they're higher than last year a bit. And so last year at this point in time, they were $1.6 million. And right now they're at $1.9 million on salaries. But I still anticipate they will not exceed their budget for the year. Their supplies are not significant. It's budgeted at $32,000. They're currently at $17,000 actuals. So they're below their target. And then on services, they're budgeted at $426,000 basically, and they have actuals of almost $420,000. That one, they're very close to their budgeted target. But I don't anticipate in any of these cases they'll exceed their budget available.
I won't lie, this is a frustrating arena for me. It's a very, and I know we're mandated to have these facilities because of our population, but we have these counties around, Lewis, us, different counties that are serving very few kids at a huge expense. And I don't know what the relief answer is, but I just tell you, I'm just expressing some frustration. It's just the cost is way out of line for what we get out of this. And I don't know that there's a way around it.
There probably is. And I'm just going to throw something out. I am bothered by this also, have been bothered for a long time. $3 million for, I would guess on the average, no more than 10 people to make the arithmetic easy. That's $300,000 on average per inmate. That's just a bit too much. So one of the things to do is that facility has 64 individual cells, if you will, and it's blockified. We have looked into how difficult or expensive it'd be to parcel that out. How about if we don't just try and part it out? We just build a new 16-person facility. I think it may be worthwhile asking, how much would it cost us to do something like that? And at that point, when we do that, you can turn that facility over to the jail, the main jail, and that would give us a lot of opportunity to handle tough situations. And so how much would it cost us to build it, and how much would this $3 million come down to?
Yeah, we need to look at all options. I think that's certainly viable.
Another thing I had talked for.
May assign that task to somebody new.
Yeah. Another thing I talked about there, and it's a little more difficult to work there, but if you look at 3 million, and this is detention, if you look at probation, you're looking at probably another 2.5 million. I haven't looked ahead. Is probation on here? Yep.
They're next, and they're 2.5 million just in their.
Yeah, okay.
Budget.
So if you look at that, you think, for $5 million a year, can we do a better job? I think we can, but it may require doing things like starting from scratch. One of my favorite is you've got to give kids a reason to live, a reason to do something, and being responsible for somebody else or something else really goes a long way. So I'm thinking there are farms out there where with the kind of money the county could buy the farm and fix it up and actually work in a program that's truly rehabilitating at an age where it might make a difference. Anyhow.
Yeah. Other options need to be explored because it's just a.
Yeah, you had asked us to put together an analysis, Commissioner Mortensen. And so I handed out, and I have available for pickup, juvenile cost analysis by month, and based upon average number of participants. And so we're comparing 23 to 24. And we did all expenditures, but the all expenditures, I'll note, that do not include any facility actual cost, any of the maintenance for the facility that resides in facilities department. So it's
Right.
even higher than the numbers.
What you see here.
Yeah.
The numbers look to me like I would need some explanations. But.
Yeah. So, for example, for 23, on average, the daily population was anywhere from a low of 5.4 participants to a high of 11.3. So, as you said, very, very low numbers in 2023 as far as number of participants. The juvenile department gave me this, where total number of beds available. They're saying it's 56 beds available for 4 pods.
So just to be sure I understand, no, that for 4 pods should be 64, but.
They're saying 4 pods at 14 max per pod.
I used to think it was 16 per pod, but anyhow,
Yeah.
if I look at the first sheet, in January of 23 versus January of 24, I see vastly different kinds of numbers, one going in one direction, one going in the other direction. So there's a story there. If I look at the first column, the cost per bed, I'm assuming that's a number that will point to me to the number of juveniles.
That cost per bed is the 56. It's costing out the entire expenses based upon 56 beds available.
Why would we do that?
We did that, and we also did it by person. We did both analysis so you could see. And January is usually a higher expenditure month because of your internal services being billed. But on average, you can see that for 23 per person, it hovered around as high as 80, because those were the lower participant months, $86, $88 per participant, to a low of $42 per participant.
I forgot to send you something, didn't I? Mine's a terrible thing.
But this is, I think this is, so if we're on the right track on what you were requesting, otherwise we can go back and modify it additionally.
Well, I'll just for brevity, I'm thinking the cost per bed column is meaningless. I don't learn anything from that. The cost per person is more meaningful, but I still don't know what constitutes a person. And remember, I had mentioned, because you have people coming in and out, you take the number of hours that they're actually in your control, if you will, and you just add up the hours, total hours of there, and then you tell us how much an hour cost us.
Okay, we'll redo it for total hours. We do have their length of stay, average length of stay per person. So we'll be able to probably calculate that. Total number of hours.
Average length of stay per person doesn't make sense except for repeat offenders.
I don't know. It's the information I was provided from juvenile. But I can do total number of hours and recalculate these numbers. And then we also provided the information 2023 by month, the average population. And if you'll notice on the last page, we have average population for the months in 2024. And it's, it's significantly higher for 2024 than it was for 2023. So far this year, based upon 9 months, we're averaging almost 11 participants per month. Of course, we have a couple of low months there. January and February are low months.
Yeah, that first page again, the first column, cost per bed, I claim is not too helpful. The cost per person, 239.26 in January. What is that? I don't know what's in there.
So January is an anomaly because January total expenses includes all of your internal service department expenses. So it jumps, your January expenses are much higher.
Okay, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Forget January then.
Okay.
You pick the month.
Okay.
I'm still, I don't know. I don't know what the cost per person is, what that means. They walk in the door and they cost $63.92. Did they stay a half day, 2 days, whatever? It just,
Yeah, we're utilizing the average number of participants for the month, which, like you said, it varies greatly.
So Kathy, if you took the average daily population per month and divided it by the expenses for that month,
Right, that's
Those
all we
numbers-
did. That's
this-
what these numbers represent.
so if we have, so let's say we have 6 people per day. And you said the average day, say in January, is well, I don't see the figures. I'm looking at the total costs for that month.
Oh, I didn't give those to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't provide them to you on the analysis.
Because
I have them.
the numbers just don't seem to, they're way too low for what we're paying for that entire program. And we've
I've
got
got
the
the same
fixed
problem.
costs.
Yeah.
So you have the fixed costs that if we don't have very many guests, the fixed costs are going to stay the same, right? I mean, generally, I think there's a little, they can close a pot or two down, but nevertheless, with those low numbers, it's per person, the costs are going to be much higher than what it was originally designed for. They were designing it for a lot more people. And now it's just a very expensive program. I'm not exactly sure what we can do about it because we are stuck with that building. We can shut 2 of the pods down, which I don't think we're using 2 of them now, are we?
I think you're correct. We can shut 2 of them down.
Yeah. Yeah.
We, on occasion, use pod C if we have
Mhm.
kids that don't get along, they'll separate out and use pod
Yeah.
C, but I don't know how often that happens.
Yeah.
So
And we also have some leaky roofs too that are eliminated. I hope we're not putting kids in the areas that are leaking. Because,
I don't believe so.
yeah.
I just
Okay.
I just try to keep it simple here. In January 2023, we spent, what was that, 31,500 roughly in wages for that, right?
Mhm.
And we had on average 6.1 kids. That's over $5,000 per kid.
Yeah,
I think
I'll
that's
take
kind
this
of,
back.
yeah. I mean,
I think we were doing averages.
we've kind of beat it to death here, but it's a super expensive program
Yeah.
and
And I think
we've
this
discussed, I
is a
think we need
day
to
by
look at-
day. I think this is a by day number versus
yeah.
for the month.
I think we need to look for better ways to do this thing if there are ones out there. Anyway,
I'll redo this. Bring it back. And I'll include the number of hours.
Yeah, I think that's about the only way we're going to be able to, just as an example, if we had the number of hours, then if we are contemplating building another facility, we kind of know the size we need. Now, this way, we don't know what size we actually need. On the juvenile detention one, on page 2, or actually, this is just a quibble. On your first page, you've got the date. But on the other pages, if I lose the paperclip on it, I'm going to lose context.
Okay, that's
So
easy enough to,
page, I would recommend always page number if you can at the bottom, along with the date at the bottom also. But that's,
yeah, we can do
Okay.
that. Okay, then we also, as I said, we have juvenile probation, which is the next set of documents. And for revenue, on probation, they have, as far as intergovernmental, which is one of their largest revenue items, they have budgeted 370,157. They've brought in 207,176. This is, it's primarily made up of Department of DSHS, Consolidated Juvenile State Grant. And those reimbursements are done monthly. And so they're going to fluctuate month to month based upon expenses because they're a reimbursement basis. But I don't anticipate, it's showing on my targets of where we should be. That's based upon a 12-month average. And we're behind from billings at least a month or more. So, but I don't anticipate that we won't achieve our budget of 370. Last year, we brought in a total prior year actuals, we brought in 362,000, and we have budgeted 370,000.
So do you know why we're behind? Is that because we're not submitting the bills, or
No,
the
it's
state is
just-
just, the state's taking a long time?
Yeah, it's just a matter of the month has to be completed, then the next month you prepare the bills and submit them, and then you wait so it could be up to 2 months before you see the revenue come in for that particular month. As far as other revenues that they have, they're pretty miscellaneous. So miscellaneous is their BECCA revenue. It's another state grant, and it's also a reimbursement program. And so that one is also billed monthly. And so we're showing a budget of 133,000. We've brought in 73,000 so far. So we're anticipating catching up on those revenues towards the end of the year.
So Kathy, Becca is the term used for the legislation dealing with schooling.
Right.
And
That's the
originally
name
it
of
was designed to attack truancy. But they don't put kids in juvie for being truant from school anymore. One of the reasons the numbers have gone down so much. And so I think what is left is the school part. They do conduct school. They have school resources that they get for making available lessons, predominantly online lessons. So yes, I think Becca might have been the name of a student that was.
It was the name of a student. That's what George told me. Other financing sources is budgeted at 139, almost 140,000. And so far 99,000 has been brought in. That's the behavioral health tax, where we turn in our reimbursements to be reimbursed for that. And that too, you have to wait till you get the month finished, do the billing, and then get your reimbursement back. So that's what that is. And last year we brought in actuals. Last year we brought in 139, and that's what we based our budget on for this year. So I don't anticipate having a budget issue for these revenues as we complete the year. Any questions on revenues?
So for probation, we're not transferring any general fund dollars to support that program?
We are transferring in general fund. We don't show that on these financials. One of the things I was thinking about doing for next year is where we have the revenue comparison, still have it like this, but then have a special text box to tell you how much in total we're budgeting as general fund contributions, so that you can see the difference between the other revenues and what is from general fund. Because we budgeted 644,000, but their expenses we're budgeting are almost 2.5 million. So general fund's contributing over $1 million. On the expense side, personnel is their largest expense. They're budgeted at 1.7 million so far through the first part of November. Their actuals are a little over $1 million, 1,082,000 or 83,000. They're right on target for, they're a little bit below the target based upon a 12-month actuals on the personnel expenses. And that's due to vacancies. Again, they have, according to this, as this point, they have 4 vacancies in juvenile probation. On the supply side, their budget is $19,900. They're pretty much on track with expending all of their supplies for the year. And then on their services, their budget's $689,000 approximately, and they've spent $526,000 year to date. They more than likely will be under budget on their services expenditures for the year.
Can you flesh out what's in the services and what's in supplies?
On services, primarily on the services is their internal billings, their risk management billing, their IT billing, their workers' comp billing, and also their unemployment billing. Those are some fairly large expenditures for this department.
And supplies?
Supplies, I'm not sure what's in there.
Yeah, that would take me back to the detention also. I noticed quite a number for supplies, and I wondered what constitutes supplies.
And on their services, let me back up. Their services also include a portion of medical. They share the contract with the corrections, so some of it is their medical on juvenile detention.
Isn't a part of that also food?
Food, yes, food.
Services.
Yeah. But on supplies, I can find out for you. Get some more detail.
Yeah, normally I would connote population numbers with supplies, and I'm not sure I can see that from one year to the next. And that would be the point at which I'd begin to say, okay, does this seem like it's rational? And then normally I think of supplies as paper, ink.
Office supplies are usually in there, but
Handcuffs.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'll get some more detail on that for you.
And we all know the word for handcuffs in Spanish, right?
I don't.
It's the same as WIFE in English. In Spanish, handcuff and your wife have the same name,
Oh,
are called the same thing. Esposa.
esposa.
That was very necessary for this program.
Well, I do know on juvenile detention, like I said, our analysis shows that they actually have more, on average, participants in 24 than they did in 23
For detention.
for detention.
Yeah, and
I don't have the numbers for probation.
probation was in a couple of hundred numbers or something like that.
I don't know exactly. Okay,
Just as a reminder, we take kids from 2 counties in Oregon plus Wahkiakum Pacific. They're just not all Cowlitz County.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, we're in a good position if we had the legal backing to turn it into a business. We have the infrastructure in place. And there are private jails. Well, this isn't going to be one of those, but we ought to be able to operate it close to neutral.
Yeah.
okay, we're going to do the financials for elections, and Carolyn's going to join. So election basically has 2 funds. The first one we're going to go over is where they're operating. Hold on. The first one we're going to go over is their
operating fund, election reserve, and then I have a capital reserve that
Right.
is specifically in the law limited to improvements for technology and capital improvements.
Improvements could be wholesale, buying a whole new system, right?
Absolutely, and I used it to finish our 2020 remodel capital improvements.
So in the operating area, we have we have our revenues first, and our revenues consist of 1 grant, intergovernmental, $6,500, and that revenue's already been brought in. We have goods and services, which is $494,500 for budget, and we brought in $247,537. I believe those are billings for those participating in elections.
Yeah, actually, that is one election, which
Right.
was the presidential primary, was billed entirely to the state. So that one, we don't bill our expenses until the end of the year. So
Right.
all of our revenue will be received typically in January of the following year, because we have to add up all of our total expenses and allocate it out between elections and voter registration. However, the presidential primary has a timeline on reimbursement, and the state pays for it all. So that 250 was for the very
So-
expensive presidential primary.
So the 247 is the presidential one. But I'm still surprised. So there's always a lag. The actual number is from the year before and so forth, but you should be pretty close, or was it this year was particularly more election activity?
A lot of election activity this year, and costs are astronomical. I've never seen an election cost $250,000 ever. Our typical costs for, say, a general election have historically been average about 150,000. There's the difference. And I think this general election, that was just the presidential primary. Our general election, I think it'll exceed, I think we'll be closer to 270. A crazy amount of money.
You mean we will bill out 270 to the various
Correct.
explanation?
I have a lot of explanations, actually.
How about a believable one?
So something
Sorry.
I wanted to talk to you guys about today was the differences in presidential elections. You know, we go 4 years in between, and a lot of legislation hits us in between. We know that the legislature loves to drop new bills on elections. And there were a lot of things that happened in between 2020 to 2024 that we haven't experienced yet in a presidential election. And that those were two main things. First of all, what we call universal registration. If you haven't heard of that, it did go into effect in 2019, but most people didn't know about it. So we didn't experience a change in the way we conduct elections in 2020. Universal registration means that any voter in Washington state can go to any county, register to vote, and get their county-specific ballot. So what happens is larger counties develop these very long lines. Clark County, if you didn't hear, had a line that was about 6 hours long. So those people called us nonstop. Do you have a line? And they flooded us in Cowlitz County. So we were registering Clark County voters and issuing their ballots due to universal registration.
That's on the day of the election.
It can be any day,
Mhm.
but the day before and the day of is when we saw the surge. Yes. Before that, we were doing really well.
Does Waukegan have an elections office?
They do. And they didn't see any universal registration. I
I was
asked them.
thinking I'd have to go over there now because the Clark people are
I
coming.
know. So universal registration was the first major change in this election. And I would say the second is new legislation that wasn't effective until our primary, which was the signature verification changes. I don't know that we will get a handle on the total costs of that. Cowlitz County alone, that equated to probably 2 full-time positions throughout the election. It's a crazy amount of money. And it had a 0 fiscal note, just so you know, when it passed the legislature. It was great.
Because it's a local cost.
Yeah.
Going back to the universal registration, so they registered and filled out a ballot, or they said, I'm Clark, this is my ID, you look them up and you generate the ballot
Both.
for them? And can they fill the ballot out right then and there and hand the ballot over to you?
Both. And then we transfer it to Clark. So
So
we
the-
pay the postage to FedEx because they have to be sent priority mail, not just between counties, we have to priority mail. So we're paying, and even though postage is included, we're also paying expedited postage to transfer in between counties to ensure they're on time.
Interesting.
At what point is it cheaper to just send send somebody from the office down?
A courier,
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, rather than the mails.
but we're
If you
sending
got a
to-
huge volume, I would
Yeah, we're
imagine at some
sending
point.
to about 8 different counties
Mm,
every day.
mm.
So Clark is the largest, of course, but
Mm.
you'll send 1 or 2 to Lewis and
If I open the ballot box and I collect ballots, can I see which ones are non-Cowlitz
yes.
instantly?
Most of the time, Lewis is an anomaly. They loved our envelope design so much that they copied it. So we're identical other than the mailing information.
So you've got to have a supply of the nearby counties envelopes?
No, what happens is we use our envelopes. If they come into Cowlitz County for universal registration, we use our envelopes and then we custom make a label to the front so that it says return to in the proper county.
Cool, thank you. I mean, that alone slows down the ballot handling.
Absolutely. And especially when there are people that are trying to register in your own county and you saw the lines, they were out the door all the way down to the courtyard. A lot of which were all around the state. They just didn't want to wait in their own lines.
Did
They
we
came to our
make any
office.
mistakes at the opening board? Open a Clark County ballot.
Oh,
I shouldn't have done
no, so the ballot is issued a Clark County ID, and because we have that fantastic envelope sorter, it's one of the things that's not programmed into the sorter. It would immediately kick it out. So that used to be a manual process, but not any longer. One other thing I would mention is even with the media hype and the issues that were occurring with ballot boxes, Cowlitz County still received 77.5% of our ballots in ballot boxes including the one in the lobby. Only 22% were received in the mail, even with everything going on with ballot boxes.
As you look into the future, I think you can expect more of that universal registration or just coming out to fill ballots.
Clearly, the word has gotten out, and I agree with you.
You know the old adage, if you want something to be done, you look around the office and find out who is busier than hell and you assign it to them.
Correct.
So the only other significant revenue item on their budget is other financing sources, which is a transfer in from the general fund. And that doesn't happen until later in the year, after all of the expenditures and things are closer to the end of the year. So we're anticipating, but this number could change, $475,000 of a transfer in to cover the expenses for elections.
And Kathy and I looked back historically. We were trying to figure out what percentage does the county contribute to election costs? And so I went back several years and did the math. The portion that the county paid averaged anywhere from 23% to 35% over the years, depending on the election.
So that means as a rule of thumb, if I go to the next page, I look at the bottom line, I'd say about a quarter of it came from the general fund.
Correct.
So that'll lead us right into the expenses. So the expenses for elections in total expenditure budgets, $1.4 million. And so their largest expenses services, but second largest expenses personnel. So on the personnel side, we have budgeted approximately 417,000. We've already had in actuals 307,000. I don't anticipate that we're going to have any kind of budget issue there. We're right on target with our budget. We also on supplies, $118,500 was budgeted. We're at 97,000 through the 1st of November. And so we're right on target based upon a 12-month average. And then on services, it was budgeted 676,000 approximately, and we're at 617,000. Most of those services are internal services. And so I don't anticipate, we're a little bit above where target, or we're a little bit above our target, but that's because a lot of our internal services are already billed out for the year.
Yeah, they're preloaded at the first of the year, basically.
Yeah, pretty loaded at the first of the year.
These supplies are all the envelopes, all the ballot
Postage.
paper and what?
Postage actually comes out of services, but
Oh.
yeah, supplies is a crazy amount of ballot stock, envelope stock. Yeah.
Well, I have to admit, I'm surprised it's that low.
It's not low. Like I say, I've never seen elections cost what they've cost us this year. It's insane.
I bumped into several people who said they had not gotten their ballot, and that's why they were in the office. Is there anything there we should understand?
Always tread lightly because I don't like to throw other organizations under the bus, but I work the front counter in elections, and I do that because we don't have enough staff, trained full-time staff to process ballots. So I take over the phone calls and the front counter, and that was my number one question. People with correct addresses, their ballot was mailed. It's in our system, it's tracked. Where is it? They didn't get it. I don't have an explanation for that. And at some point in the election, I stopped kind of asking questions and I started providing the USPS online complaint email because we've had 4 years to prepare for this. And some of the things that I saw this election were a travesty.
When you can, if you can collect the stats, like 1% of everything mailed out didn't get to the destination kind of thing. I don't know if you can
I don't
figure
know
that
how
out.
I could collect that because people would come in for replacements, right? I don't know of the people that came in maybe in future elections.
Very hard to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only if they say I didn't receive mine.
And yeah, exactly.
you
And people
checked
that
it.
don't report it.
I don't,
So you do have a system for keeping track of the ballots that have been turned in. So if they come and say, I didn't get it, and yet you've received one from them, that's an important check. You're not going to get all of them back because, we're only up to 50%, half the people.
I can
response.
definitely track the number of replacements received. But, in addition to, I didn't get my ballot, there were several, my wife put my ballot through the washing machine, my dog ate my ballot, people issuing themselves ballots online, not knowing it. So there's also that. They're not all, I didn't receive my ballot. Some of them are quite funny.
But are you catching very many people whose ballots have been cast who've come in and said, I didn't get it?
Oh, yeah. The people, like Arn's talking about, the people in that long line, a heavy majority of them did not receive their ballot in the mail. And when I looked at, I always confirm the first question is this address correct? Yes. Do you receive it, your mail at this address? Yes. No explanation. It's really frustrating, which is why I tried to get out the word for, Washington voters really need to take a little more ownership in our voting period. They have the ability to track their ballot from the moment that we issue it. So log into votewa.gov and you can see when your ballot's issued. And if you don't receive one, you need to contact us. I can't help you if you don't take a little initiative, or otherwise you end up standing in that long line waiting for a ballot at the last minute. I guess one of the challenges to being vote by mail. No perfect system, but this is definitely one of the challenges.
well, I can't help it. I'm curious. Sometimes you have very few items on a ballot. It fits on one short page. But now somebody from another county comes and they have so what's the largest length paper? How do you deal with all that?
So our largest ballot style is an 11 by 17. So it's not just longer and wider. You fit more columns on each side, front and back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And-
that's how you do it.
And this ballot, everything is according to statute. We place the issues on the ballot according to statute, and we know that all the initiatives appear first prior to president. So we saw that president, first you have your column of instructions, and then you've got 2 full columns of initiatives. So president was literally on the 3rd column, kind of lower on the right. People couldn't find it. People threw it away, came in and said, that was my local ballot. I want my presidential ballot. We don't have a separate ballot. So let's look at it again. You only get one ballot. Every ballot that you receive will always be a consolidated ballot in Washington state. It will have all races for that election.
I know this is out of your control, but it bothers me that people treat the ballot with such callousness, disregard. I wonder what would happen if they got one ballot and only one ballot. We can mail it to you, or you can come and pick it up.
I'm sure I'd get fewer love notes. There were some very interesting ones this election.
But behavior wise was much better than the last election.
So much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes a difference to have a presence. I've heard you say it before. All it takes is a presence, and it doesn't need to be super close. It just keeps people in check because tensions are high. It was an important election, but it made all the difference in the world.
On the capital reserve, there's very little activity. There is some revenue, goods and services. Again, I think that's for a billing.
It's a mandatory 15% overhead
Right.
on all of our charge out expenses. That makes up the entire capital reserve.
Right. And so, and then for expenses, so far this year, there's just a little bit in supplies. They have 15,000 budgeted, and they have $2,274 in supplies expended.
You'll see that change next year.
Mhm.
Next year, we are due to replace some technology. It's been, I can't remember the year that I want to say 2019, that we converted to our current tabulation system. And we're staying with the current tabulation system, but some of the technology, like the scanners, are becoming outdated, and they don't give those away. Clearly, for two of them, I think it'll be close to $70,000.
And that's it on the financials, unless there's other questions.
Okay,
I'll add one more thing with the signature verification statute changes. We ended up with currently, and we have until the 26th to certify the election, but currently we have about 1% of all ballots received that are challenged, 2 positions dedicated to that 1% of voters this election. That's how much interaction and time it takes to deal with those challenged ballots.
So these are people you already have on staff that can't do anything else.
So we have 5 now on staff, and then I also come over and I hired a small army of temporary full-time office staff. I think I had 7 full-time during the voting period. And yeah, 2 people were dedicated simply to making the contact. We have 3 different reviews that we have to do by different people now. So just an amazing amount of work on challenged ballots.
It's amazing it's only 1%. When you think about it.
It is. And we just received a big records request on that. So it's still a hot topic for such a very low number.
Just out of perspective, if you were a telephone manufacturer or a TV manufacturer, if you got 1% of failure, I went to Costco, I brought my thing home and plugged in, didn't work, you'd be out of business. You require fractions of a percent.
That's not an option in government though, I guess. Gotta have elections.
Yeah.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Ten o'clock is Public Works. Are you all good? I know we're here early, but if we're all good.
Good morning, Commissioners. Savannah Clement, Public Services. Susan Eugenius was supposed to be up here with Sean this morning. She unfortunately is ill. So I'll have to plead some ignorance on some of these items. But essentially what we're here to do is present our rate proposal for 2025. We had come and workshop with the board some of our ideas moving forward and had planned to come last week and we ran out of time. And so we're here today to go over kind of the high level concepts that we've been discussing internally, bringing to the board to kind of get some direction. Rates, I believe, have to be approved on the scheduled December 3rd date. That's correct. So we're really trying to get some good feedback today to bring forward something that the board will consider for approval on that date. You got a lot of documents I think it was 2 weeks ago now. So we have a lot of those same documents here today. I'll go ahead and pass it to Sean.
So first of all, does everybody still have their handouts from last Wednesday or? All righty.
Looks like some of these papers have been out in the rain.
I saw that.
It's been a little wet these last few days, unfortunately. So first, I just wanted to take a little time to review all of our systems with the map here. So I'll start off with our largest system. That's going to be the Tootle wastewater and water system that runs most of Spirit Lake Highway. That's a system with a little over 900 water users and a little over 415 sewer users. It is sewers from Hall Road east. So that's going to be the Streeters area on the map. North of that, we have the Riverview Drive. It's a small system that's water only that serves about 19 people. We have the Port of Longview sewer system that serves 7 customers. We have the Riderwood system that's both water and sewer. That's just shy of about 300 households there. We have the Camelot system. That's a little over 50 households on that system. That's both sewer and water. And then we have the Ostrander area. Ostrander has approximately 100 connections on that one, and that is sewer only. So as you can tell, we have 7 systems across the county itself. And each one of those systems is very unique on how it was acquired, the age of the system, and the needs of the system.
Just for a little background for maybe some people
Sure.
who are in the audience, can you explain how we would have acquired these systems as a county agency?
A lot of times we get systems through a failed HOA, failed development, anything of that nature. When the system is no longer functional, it reverts to the county. So most of the time when we do receive a system, it is in usually a disrepair or needs some sort of significant correction done to it.
And that also explains why our system is so widespread. A lot of water systems have a better, I shouldn't say better, a more condensed system to operate in. Ours is obviously, you see the map, it's kind of all over the county and the unincorporated area.
And so as Savannah said earlier, we kind of just want to have a conversation with the board to get an understanding of the path forward that the board like to see and the rates that are associated with those. So we presented to the board a 6 years plus current year to date of cash in and out, the amount that's been transferred to reserves. So I think that's an important issue to talk on. Since about 2020, Public Works has been shifting about $750,000, $750,000 into its reserve fund. Prior to that, in 2019, there was about $200,000. And prior to 2018 to about 2012, there was no transfer. Most of those dollars that are in the reserve are earmarked for the capital projects that are being partially funded by ARPA, some congressional funding as well. And the remainder of that's going to be our reserve fund. 2023 was an interesting year. We were positive. It was exciting. We had quite a few lien payoffs. So on our sewer side, our sewer only customers, if they decide not to pay the bill, we have two options. File a lien and let it run, or foreclose on the house.
Historically, the board had not been supportive of water sewer foreclosing on homes due to unpaid water sewer bills. So they essentially will sit there and accrue interest from the lien until it's going to be paid off. And I think with the housing market changes in 2023, really saw a lot of those lien payoffs that had been sitting there for years in some cases. That's essentially why they would go into a lien status instead of foreclosure.
So the property was sold.
Correct.
Yeah, our longest one, which was a little, I think, just under 19 years.
So in 19 years, they never paid their sewer bill is what you're suggesting?
That's
Correct.
correct.
When you started this $750,000 put away, how'd you arrive at that number?
That's a great question. It was, at that point in time, a reasonable estimate of what was needed to replace the system ongoing. Through 2020, through now, we have seen significant increases in construction costs and replacement costs. And so that kind of draws us to another handout that we provided that talks about each of the individual system components, their lives, and the expected replacement costs associated with those.
It's the one that starts with capital depreciations on the top. I know you guys have a lot of documents.
And so here we just wanted to give a general idea of what the replacement system and the life of the systems are anticipated to be in 2024 dollars. So we do have a mixture of both modern piping as well as AC and concrete piping. AC and concrete piping, for the majority, from what I hear, has not been used since the early 70s, late 60s. So most of that's coming up on end of life as well. If we were to look at our systems, just a quick breakdown of it. If we look at the Tootle system, everything west of Hall Street is going to be more the ductile iron, the modern, while everything east of Hall Road is going to be more of the AC. Ostrander is going to be concrete. Camelot is mainly AC pipe, but with a little bit of newer and mixed in. Riderwood is about half and half, and International is all modern. AC is asbestos concrete.
We don't like to use the word asbestos, so we just short.
So let me make sure I understand. Let's just take the piping, the water, that top line, so I understand what we're looking at. From as we sit now, we expect 75 years out of it? Is that what you're saying?
75 years once it was in the ground.
So it doesn't have a life expectancy of 75 right now.
No.
No,
Do we know where it's at?
it's going to be variable throughout the entire system. Some of it's going to be newish, some of it's going to be quite old.
Because of the way we acquire these systems, we don't always know exactly point of inception. So we've been working on, when it was construction and placed, when it would need to be replaced. So we've been working on our inventory of these systems, but we don't.
Yeah, can you give just an example of the project through the summer on
Culvert.
the water meters?
Oh, yeah. So we were doing our water meter inventory, and it was a requirement of the state. So we had started that during the summer. We finished it, but we were able to inventory all of our meters that could be, have lead and what would need to be replaced in conjunction with our water meter replacement that we requested from the board. So we are working on these inventories with our GIS capabilities, but we still don't have all the data, is kind of what I'm saying.
So
Okay.
basically the replacement is as needed rather than a set time where,
On some systems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think Susan's talked with the board a little bit, about the Ostrander I&I project as that
Mhm.
you have to do the I&I first, and then we can go into the pipe replacement. And so there's a process with ecology and the Board of Health at that point in time. Or sorry, Department of Health. Whatever that state agency is nowadays.
So, and the next column, replacement cost 230, what's that
Per foot.
per foot?
So on piping, we have about water pipe, about 135,000 of modern water pipe, about 46,000 feet of modern sewer pipe. And then we have about 41,000 of older pipe in water and 27,000 in sewer. Now, you see the big difference there because most of the water pipe that's new is going to be a ductile iron, while the sewer is more of a plastic product, either HDPE, PVC, depending on the use case.
Okay, and then the 415,533, I'm not sure it's really depreciation.
That's how much we should be putting away per year to replace our system over the life of it.
But we don't know how much needs to be replaced.
It's an educated
Right,
guess.
It's an educated guess at that
Stab
point.
in the dark, right?
I wouldn't call it stab in the dark. I'd call it more educated, but it still is an estimate.
Because we do have some knowns.
Mhm.
Not all of our systems are we not sure of, the install date. We do have some information to go off of. But that's how we were determining what our pipes are made out of and the products are made out of and what their estimated lifespan is, but we don't exactly have, like I said, when they were installed.
So 400, if it's $230 per foot, 415, that's over 1,800 feet a year.
That would be the annualized replacement value for our entire system. Now, it's not going to be done in an annual year. We'll do a project. They'll do a significant portion of that system at a time. It doesn't make sense to do 1,800 feet at a time.
How many feet do we have of pipe?
Of water, about 176,000. Sewer, we're close to, I'm doing math in public, 73,000. And that's across all the systems. We have a few pump stations, 2 water, 5 sewers. Our lagoons, those are both at end of life. That's gonna be Riderwood and Ostrander. We have our 1 sewer plant. That's one of our ARPA projects. The revitalizing the Tootle sewer plant. We have the LOS system. That's the large on-site septic system. That's gonna be Camelot, and we are also working on that replacement currently. And then we have a few commercial wells. Water plant at Riderwood, we're working on that emergency water plan currently. And then, of course, water meters. We do participate in a few regional plants. That's gonna be Turwa and as well as the Castle Rock Regional Plant.
Do these numbers assume that we're handling the entire expense ourselves? That there'll be no other funds available?
This number's assuming that. At that point in time, there may be grant dollars, it may be debt.
Have
It
we
really
ever
depends.
had an issue getting grant dollars when we've done stuff?
I believe the last 2 were debt ran.
Yeah, Public Works Trust Fund loans is what we've done since I've been at Public Works. So in the last 7 years, that's our primary funding for water sewer.
The Port of Longview sewer system, that was an LID project, a local improvement. And so they paid that through their taxes.
so where is that being treated?
Come again?
Where is that sewage being treated?
That goes to Turwa.
There's a treatment
So-
pond right there
So it goes into a pump station and that's pumped to Turwa for treatment.
that goes to Turwa.
Yes, sir. That's the Port of Longview International Way Pump Station.
So when we improved, just so I understand, when we improved the Port of Longview, then we put an assessment on there to pay.
We did an LID, that's correct.
Is that available on any of these systems?
I believe there's a little bit of approval process through the homeowners within that system if they want to approve those. And usually that's for new or expanding systems and things of that nature.
Here's the thing that gets me a little nervous. If we put all this money away, then at some point in time, 10 years down the road, we're gonna have a ton of money sitting in a pot. And I know the way governments act. I see it at federal, I see it at state, I see it's happened to you. They've shifted money out of your funds and put it someplace else.
Is that possible with water sewer capital
10,
reserves?
15 years down the road, who's ever sitting in here sees a pot of money and has a pet project, and these people have paid for some project that has no benefit to them.
Yeah, so water sewer as an enterprise fund is a restricted fund. I don't believe there's an opportunity for that to be transferred out.
Well, I used to have, there was a restricted fund in the state of Washington. It was ORV's got a percent of the gas tax. It was supposed to be restricted. Well, the legislature came and swiped it twice.
Mm.
Doesn't matter if it's restricted. If they want it, they'll take it. And I've seen it happen. So it makes me a little, I'm not saying it's a bad idea that you should try and have some left. So when you're ready, I'm just saying, I know the nature of people, and they get greedy and they have a project and they'll fight like heck to get their funds for it.
So at the bottom of your chart, you have a grand total of 1.3 million a year
Mhm.
being set aside. You're not creating a rate that will generate that revenue,
No, sir.
not anywhere as close.
Nowhere close.
How much more above you said you would typically have been setting aside 750,
It's been 750 for the last few years.
and it's continuing to be at that rate?
Yes, sir.
So we are underfunding the reserves that we can expect. Having said that, though, we know that the expected life is a guess.
Yep.
And as often as not, the life is extended beyond the time that's available. So those expenses aren't absolute, but it does make sense. You have to have some reason to determine how much reserves you do want to build into the rate structure. And it does make these rates much more expensive than people who live inside cities who have a heck of a lot more people to share the capital costs with. It's just the nature of the beast. The farther away from the cities, the fewer the number of people contributing. And I know you try to operate it as one system for billing. So if you're in the system, you're helping your rural neighbors outside the city limits. But it is, you compare Riderwood sewer and water rates, and they don't they're more expensive than, say, the city of Longview. I mean, it just costs more.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that on the base rates and other things. One of the items we don't have on our sewer side is consumption. Because we have so many systems that are just sewer that we don't have the data for, all we charge is a base rate. And, we've talked previously comparing the cities outside of their city limits, more the rural infrastructure, and comparing our rate structures around that. We do fall in the middle for the outside of the more rural areas of the county.
Can I go to this page?
Yep.
Looking at fees for service, they've increased yearly from 2018 on up.
Mhm.
Is that from rate increases, or are we adding people to these systems, or
So that
What's
is from
driving
rate
that?
increases, yeah.
that's all
Uh,
rate increases?
Yeah, for perspective, in 2024, we've added 6 connections to the system. That's 3 water and 3 sewer. So we don't
adding
have
to
a
the
significant.
system is very minimal
Mhm.
throughout these years. Operating costs, what's in operating costs? How's that break down? Is there any?
Yeah, so for example, this year, we're about 900,000 a few days ago. Of that, about 300,000 of that's us purchasing water to resell. We have supplies of about 95,000. Outside services, about 168. And then our internal and other government is about 350.
Okay. Kathy may know this, there's no non-cash items in there, there's no depreciation. Or
No, when I put
reserves or
this
anything
together, I
like
took
that?
all the non-cash stuff out. So these are real cash in, cash out numbers.
Things that we're actually paying.
Yeah.
And when we put those meters in, we had a expectation of some yearly savings, and I'm trying to, do you recall what that, and have we plugged any of that into this?
No, we have not.
No. Mm-mm.
And that'd be probably more on the water purchase side and the water generation side of things from our
Mhm.
wells or treatment systems.
So
In the discussion of expenditures, the issue of if we do it this way, we'll save money. Those savings never really show up in the document as savings because it's in the operating costs that the
Yeah,
savings occur, so you never really see it. But
Well, when you budget, it should be able to show some budget differences if we expect lower costs there.
Yeah, and I think we'll see that in the future, especially on the water purchases on the Tootle system. As we tighten up those meters and get leaks and any other items addressed at a more timely manner, we'll see those annual costs be reduced over the years.
So do you recall what happened in 2020 that caused our total expenses to go down by about $1 million, $1.5 million?
I believe there's a COVID. We really,
Not $1.5 million.
We also didn't have, half of our staff was gone. If you recall, we lost a considerable amount of our water sewer staff personnel for, I think it's not feel, it was a 4 to 6 month time frame. I don't think it accounts for that total, but that's part of it.
150,000. Not-
I gave my copy away, so I was
Okay.
going with your number.
I
like, I
missed the decimal, decimal here, decimal there. It was also COVID, so that,
Mhm. And we didn't have I don't know if we mentioned this, but historically, we've done 3% increases, I think, since 2018.
Mhm.
Except for 2020, for the 2021 year, we
Correct.
had a 0% increase during COVID.
people are staying at home, more use, things of that nature as well, for why we see our fees for service increase as well.
How many people do we employ, Sean?
We currently have 5 operators.
Mhm.
In prior years, we did have 4. I forget what year that was. Was that 22? We currently
On-
also,
around. yeah,
around 22, and we currently have our water sewer engineer position open.
vacant. It's been vacant since mid of 2022, June of 22, it's been open.
that was Patrick.
That's correct. And he was moved to Diking and Development.
And this is a half-time FTE shared with, I believe, stormwater.
This
Hmm.
sheet. So I see 23, 24, we did 3%. This year, we're asking for 5.
That's a placeholder. You know, I really want to have this discussion with the board. I also have one prepared for 3%. I believe Commissioner Weber asked us that last week, so I didn't want to hand it out too early. Let's do 3%.
on there? So they don't.
Yeah.
What's it? Yeah, I guess my question is, what's it generate in dollar amount?
It's not a significant value. I would expect to see about $150,000 of revenues.
Between the 5 and the 3?
total on the 5. I would expect a few new connections throughout the year. One thing we haven't addressed ever is our senior population. We do have a significant amount of our customer base, which is using the reduced fee structure. I think it's around 30%. So that's another consideration there.
These rate changes have to be approved by the UTC or something like that?
Nope, these ones are just through you all.
Okay, and so the decision's here.
Yes, sir.
And did I interpret correctly that in 2024, you anticipate we'll be at $180,000 equivalent under their, call it a loss from the budget?
I would expect about 150, 140. So I would expect about 150, 140.
Yeah, okay. So, and the new rates at the 3% increase bring us 2025 in line, or are we still short?
We'll probably still be short.
And that's still ignoring the 750,000 that was mentioned that maybe should be higher, but
And we can always balance our budget by
we'll just ignore that for
Okay.
the moment. So in your recommendation from all the analysis is that the 5% is the right number?
I don't think I'm making a recommendation. I just really want to chat with the board, discuss this, see what your perception is, and go from there.
If Sean was making a recommendation, it would be higher than 5% is what he's saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Yes.
find out
Mhm.
is, so 5% is what you think you can get, is partway to where you think you need to be, but you don't dare go higher. So that means our total fund ending balance will still go down a little bit each year.
And I'm glad you brought that up. We do have an ending fund balance within water sewer currently, and that is approximately 2.1 million right now. So we do have a little bit of room to eat that down throughout the years as we slowly step up.
What would be the number, instead of 5%, what would be the number that would make it all whole?
It was so high, I stopped looking for it.
I beg your pardon?
It was too high to even continue to look. I didn't think it was a reasonable value, so I stopped at that point.
Yeah, but it's not 50%.
It'd probably be in the high 20s, low 30s.
High 20, low 30. Okay, that's,
That's the difficult part. There are some other developments happening on Hall Road. I know we've approved one that was, I think, right after you joined, Mr. Chairman. We had that quite a discussion on that. And that hasn't shown any, that's not been listed for any new connections.
I have not seen any new connections come to
Okay,
that
so
development
that's
yet.
out there, that's a potential. And we have quite a few developments in Lexington, but Lexington is not handled by the county, even though it's unincorporated. They have the Beacon Hill Sewer and Water District. So that you're getting all the extra connections on that. And I think water service on Coal Creek Road is handled by the city of Longview.
Correct.
So, and everybody else has to take care of their own sewers.
how
Out there,
how
yeah.
much is a hookup charge?
We call those SDCs, System Development Charges, and they're around $1,900. It is a fee that we looked at in doing this process. But as Commissioner Dahl and Sean stated earlier, there's only a handful, 6, I think that you said last year.
6 this year, yeah.
This year, year to date. So it's not a significant amount, but we could also start looking at some of those fees I know we looked at other, areas in the county and I can't remember. I think are we the lowest?
We are the lowest on sewer. We are second to lowest on water.
And the highest being?
The highest is currently Kalama. They're 13.5 on water and 10,000 on sewer from my research.
And the number you gave me, the 1,900 is just for the sewer?
Yes, it's 1958 for water and sewer independently.
Oh, okay.
Each.
Oh, each.
Each, yes.
I don't know if this is pertinent at all. When I think about, I try to put myself in the shoes of the public, and ideally I'm out in the country and I have a choice. If I have a choice, it's between hooking up or putting in a well and septic. When I look at that, well prices are astoundingly expensive. And sewer systems are not cheap anymore either. I look at that, it would take more than 20 years to, at the current rate. So I think you're a little low on the hookup side.
I think back in the 90s was when the Tootle system was established. And if I remember correctly, it's a little bit foggy. There was a huge bond issue that was paid off over the course of about 20 years. But it's always been an issue of how high do you put the rates in order to pay off those debts, because there was intensive development. You can see where the red lines have a lot, a lot of density. That's where the houses are,
Yep.
almost to urban standards out at Streeters. I mean, pretty close to, they're all right next door to each other.
Yep.
Which is where you get the best cost sharing, when you have a lot of people living close together.
Correct.
But a long line, a single line all by itself, that's pretty expensive because you're not sharing the costs.
Yeah, and I think, as we look at this system, we see on the west side of the Tootle system, Town and Timberline there. And we see that density factor change between Timberline Road and then Town. We see, 1 acre lots versus 5 to 10 acre lots there. With water available, there is more density. We can see that pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that, we did do a development, a subdivision approval not too long ago on Timberline. I mean, that exactly what you're saying, the water's available, and so that does stimulate some growth. Assuming interest rates and the economy are headed the right direction.
I'm still over here.
Sure.
2023, after everything, we netted 158. You
Yes,
think
sir.
we're going to lose about 150 this year?
Mm-hmm.
What's the $300,000 difference between the years?
Great question. So of course, we did have better interest rates in 2023, as well as the lien payoffs we had talked about earlier. We had a significant amount of those. Some of those ranged in the $20,000 to $30,000 range each.
And we think that made like $300,000 worth of difference.
For lien payoff, and last year it was a great year for those. We are down to, I think, 5 liens left, which is a great number. Can't recall off the top of my head now. Yeah, that's the actuals.
So The employees are receiving a 4% rate increase, or pay increase this year. Is that what the contract was negotiated at?
I think it's 3.5.
Three and a
Yes,
half?
I'm seeing head nods. I think it's, I had 3.5 that I was going to say. That's what I think it is.
Mhm.
Are y'all wondering where I want to go?
Eh,
I mean,
We are.
it's been typical here the last couple of weeks. You're all wondering where I want to go.
I will say ahead of that, I don't think we have much choice but to do the 5%.
Well, I think we have a choice, and I'm not in favor of the 5. I get it. We're paying more in salaries. Everybody's getting raises, except we serve people like a Riderwood people. They're not getting raises. And I don't know where to find it sometimes, but
Well,
I'm sorry, I just can't, I can't do that to them. Just can't do it.
there are two ways to look at something like that. It's a service provided, and unfortunately, there is no competition. And so it's difficult to do a price signaling mechanism. But it does, I like to keep welfare separated out from cost, unlike with the juvenile detention center, which is just so egregiously expensive. This is the cost of many little systems. And I think if we wish to have a program for welfare kinds of things, we should do that as a separate program as opposed to encumbering the business. A little bit of the attitude I've had about the landfill. You got to run the landfill like a business. And I think the closer you start operating things like a business and keep it seriously in mind, then the closer you represent the actual costs of things. So you don't end up 20 years down the line saying, wow, look at this detention center. We're paying, $3 million for an average of 10 people. How did we get there? Well, we didn't look at the numbers early enough. We didn't understand it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with much of that, but it all based on the assumption that everything we do around here is efficient and run like a business. And I don't have that confidence. And I'm not saying you guys aren't doing a good job, but there's never any competition. It's all what we do. And I just don't know that we find efficiencies everywhere. I know that of whatever that deficit is, we've made a change in meters that's supposed to save us money, supposed to cut into that and bring that down. And but I don't see any of that referenced in here. So I guess what I'm pushing for is we just need to look harder.
Do we,
Well, one of the other real challenges we have is that every time we do have to make repairs, the costs are considerably higher. I mean, that's been the cost of materials is just relentlessly going up. Although I do agree, to me, 5% is a little bit too high. 3 may be not quite enough. But I appreciate the fact that you prepared the numbers for us to look at on that. So it's really somewhere between, from my view, somewhere between that 3 and 4% or so, because we need to recognize the money, the rates are lagging a little bit behind, just the cost of replacements, materials. But we do have a customer, a large number of those folks whose incomes aren't very elastic, as you pointed out. But we also have some pretty fine homes along that highway as well. That, I mean, there is a little bit of a difference. So I think there's capacity for a little bit higher rate. And again, last thing we want is a double-digit increase. So a little bit each year it makes sense to me. And I've been through that before because it sounded good and the economy seemed good, let's not raise rates. And then it didn't take very long for double-digit rate increase. That hasn't been the case here, right? We've been at that 3%, but we've done it
Since
every
we've been
year,
there.
pretty consistently, except for the 1 year with the COVID, I think we skipped.
And another element for perspective is if I build a house and I have my own well and septic and they fail, it's on me. And these systems came to us, I think, in an unfortunate, it's unfortunate how it came to us. And I may be incorrect, but I think negatively of whoever constructed those systems because they took a very casual attitude about it because they knew the county would have to pick it up. And I consider that even right from the start as that begins the evil transaction. So is the county obligated to pick up these systems?
They are.
I mean,
That's my
it's-
understanding, yes.
That kind of, yeah. And human nature, they'll do that. And it's frustrating to me that the people that end up paying for that person's, whoever they are, mistake, are people that had nothing to do with it. We don't seem to do a very good job of going after the ones that caused the problem.
Well, I think you're correct, although I wouldn't say it that way because we never know for sure. People have bought stuff before thinking they're getting a real deal.
So I think we need to be careful about the facts. For example, International Way, that wasn't a failed system. That was an LID where the property owners came to us and we facilitated that. Although I don't understand why they didn't go with the city, which had the system already set up. But I imagine it was a high fee the city was going to charge them for setting it up. So that one isn't. Ostrander was another one that was approved by the county. It wasn't originally a private one because that was part of the development thing.
Right.
Okay. And then of course, Streeters, that's the major push for doing the wastewater in Tootle. And so that was done the right way with, working with developers. The county it wasn't a failed system. Camelot definitely was the failed system. Riderwood, arguably the failed system. It was a totally private developed city after Long Bell sold it off. And then the few other little, Riverview and those things. I mean, those are private ones that we had to acquire. Yeah.
So, you guys are touching on all this stuff that I've kind of remember from all previous meetings, how we ended up with these systems and just a food for thought. Could we sell these systems? Could this be sold to a private enterprise? That's just a side note.
I think we would love to have to sell them.
So, but there is one customer. Now, the people in Riderwood, that's a retirement community. 5%, it's going to hurt those guys. It will. You'll take food off the table right there. But over at the Port of Longview, now is the International Way listed here? Is that the Port of Longview pays that bill?
Yes.
They are rich. Those guys have millions of dollars in profit, like 10 to 15 million a year in the last few years that I've been going to their meetings. And they're charging us a property tax on top of that they don't have to. I'd charge them 50% more and let everybody else go. That's what I would do. Seriously.
We do
They've-
charge them more, but not to that
Well, it should be a
effect.
lot more.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of money. I mean, they are not hurting at all. And all these other people, and I know Camelot, if they're not rich out there. Streeters, you probably got some people out there that could afford this. Like you say, there's some nice houses along the way there. But Port of Longview, they got all the money.
I
Why
didn't
not
think,
charge them more?
I
you
didn't
know?
think I'd ever hear you to stand on the tax the rich bandwagon.
Well, I'm not saying tax the rich. What I'm saying is they are making us pay them a tax when they're way into the profit margins.
Yeah.
And that's us getting that money back,
Again,
for these other people. I mean, this doesn't affect me. I'm not on any of these, but I'm just saying, Port of Longview's rich. And if it were me, I'd charge them all the difference.
The
and I'd let
only
everybody
way
else
you
go.
can avoid distortions is by trying to get as close to the real number for the service.
It's true.
I
think that
go to
I-
Walmart and I could buy a TV there for $300, or I could go somewhere else and buy it for 500. Walmart doesn't say, oh, he's a commissioner, he gets paid more, so we'll charge him more. I mean, just
That might not be a bad
So,
idea.
so.
As long as you're paying more, not me.
Following,
exactly.
following Tim's logic, it would seem to me an idea that the depreciation amount that we're now only covering about 60% of. Why are we under capitalizing from the port? Why not make the port systems pay for itself?
Every time you agree with me, I get a little scared. It really worries me when you say that kind of stuff, Dennis. But just my conclusion, and I'll get down. I think
But of course, having said that, though, those dollars wouldn't, they could very logically say, well, make sure that that money goes to pay for our system. Don't put it in the fund that you share with everybody else.
Well, yeah, you're not going to tell them. We don't want to project this. We'll just give them a bill at the end
You
of the
don't
month.
think they would figure that
But
out?
one last thing I just wanted to say, I think the connection rates seem pretty low, especially if you're comparing that to drilling a well or putting in a septic or both. You could probably double those rates and still be a good deal. I think if you're getting a good supply of water and you got it and it's guaranteed, I think you could easily double those rates. I mean, and I'm not for raising rates on stuff, but that's the kind of thing there that's a minimal rate when you're building a whole house. And you
Yeah.
compare that to a well and a septic, $4,000 for water and sewer,
Oh.
and that's a deal. I mean, which isn't a bad deal, but if
It's
you're
not a
gonna-
revolving fee either. It's a one-time.
Yeah, and that kind of hookup, I think you could easily raise on that. But to me, everybody out here is hurting except this one spot in the corner, Port of Longview. I'd charge the hell out of those guys.
Tim brought up a good point, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. Of our customers, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong, I think 30% are on a reduced rate, so that that it will be subsidized by the other ratepayers. Some of them up to 75% reduced. So, and we do see that in a lot of the areas that Tim pointed out. Most of the higher density.
So you don't want to budge above 3.
Well, it sounds like we're 3, 4, and 5, so.
Let's do 2.
Well, we're not making a decision today because we have a public hearing.
Yes, that's correct. It has to go
To
through
give people
the
an
budget
opportunity.
process. And I'm not sure with the schedule if we'll be able to come back and workshop it anymore.
I believe the hearing's on the 2nd of December, so it'll be,
That 2 weeks.
I don't know if do we have meetings next week?
Not on Wednesday.
Not on
no.
Wednesday, no.
So does make it hard. But we can try to come back on another Monday and talk about it.
I think one thing you can do, and I think we're probably all three in agreement here, is maybe look at the connection fees. I get that you don't have a lot adding on, but I think as Commissioner Weber pointed out, we did approve that development out and off of Hall Road, and that eventually at some point in time will probably hook on, and there'll be more developments to hook on, and it's been pointed out, and I think it's correct, that these hookup fees are a heck of a deal. Just, I did a well 30 years ago, and it's still a heck of a deal, right?
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, and we have those numbers. We just knew that the rates would definitely be a bigger point of contention than, than the one-time fees, but we have that prepared too. We can bring that next time we come back to the board. The other thing I'd note is we've been looking at ADUs. I think that's kind of the future. A lot of people are rebuilding a lot more ADUs. We don't have a fee structure at all for hookups. They don't exist. So it's kind of something we were going to explore a little bit. So I think that's all we have.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have HR at 11. You guys want to take a short recess before then? Okay. Let's recess till 11 o'clock.
Sure, they can make changes, they make the restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So they can make adjustments.
Okay, we're back for 11 o'clock with these human resources. Jessica?
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have two requests this morning. First comes from Building and Planning. They're requesting to add a new code tech 4 or 5 plans examiner. And then they're not filling 2 of their vacant positions, the assistant planner or the permit coordinator position. And Tracy's here if you wanted more information on the reasons behind this.
So I guess you might have to go through that again. I didn't.
Yeah. So requesting to fill a new code tech position, plans examiner,
Pro tech?
code tech,
Code.
a building inspector, plans examiner. And then at the same time, not filling 2 of their vacant positions.
So I thought the last time we spoke, I asked you how staffing was and you said you were okay.
We are okay. This is, we have a employee going out for some surgery. We don't know when they're gonna return. 3 of my code tech plans exams, they do both plan exam and they can retire at any time. And so we're kind of looking as succession plan, fill the void, and then with us taking on Castle Rock, I'd prefer not to fill the planning position and the counter position and do it on the inside where we're gonna have the work with the plans exam and the code tech taking on City of Castle Rock. Just preparing, making sure we have no holes.
So the code tech isn't a new hire.
The code tech is a
reclass.
building inspector. The code tech 4 does the plan review
Okay.
and like all the plans.
Mhm.
They also are able to go out in the field as well. So they're versatile. They usually come with more experience and more certifications.
Is this an additional employee?
This would be this is an additional position approval, but I'm going to give up 2 positions for this position.
Okay, so you're switching one, basically.
Well, 2 for
Switching one
one.
and dropping one.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. I think that's what we talked about in the exec session, didn't we?
Not this one, no.
There have been so many proposals recently about changing job classification.
Yeah, not this one. This is just in addition to on the building side and not filling a planner.
Or maybe
I'm
it was-
okay with that.
It was something we discussed. Yes, I am too.
We're adding a code tech, we're eliminating a building planner.
A planner, just on the planning side, the environmental planner. I've not asked for it to be filled.
And also a desk person.
And we have a second building permit, intake on the permit side. So I have 2 open positions. I'm not filling either one of those, and this will replace one of those. Plenty of budget capacity, less 1 total FTE. Hopefully even more efficiencies.
Do you ever have a line in your, in the office downstairs?
We don't
Like,
have
I
a
wanna- I want to
line.
get to the counter, but there are 5 people ahead of me.
No, we don't have a line. The way our counter is set up, a lot of times 2 or 3 of the windows are full, but we don't have a line or anybody waiting. Usually if they're waiting just for staff to finish on the phone, then to come down and help a certain individual.
4:45 on Thursdays.
No, not very often. No.
Just before the-
Usually we
long
get
is-
them earlier in the morning than later.
Okay.
Good.
Next item comes from the Health Department. This is one that we had workshopped. They have a current infections prevention specialist who's at a level 1. they're eligible to move to a level 2, but the salary grade was never set for that. So we're requesting to set the salary grade at salary grade 255, which is a 5% increase on top of their current salary grade.
We did do a workshop on that one, didn't we?
Correct. And I
Yeah.
had to bring it back to the union and they are
Yeah.
in agreement.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they're assuming additional responsibilities because.
Yeah, additional responsibilities can do more at the level 2 level with their certifications.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a few executive sessions, but I know you had another one on the schedule, so I didn't know if you wanted to do that one first.
I don't know. I know we have executive session. I don't know what they all are.
Yeah, I have a few and I know that there's another one for potential litigation, so I'm good with waiting or.
So probably the potential litigation because we have on right at the moment.
Mhm.
And who's that coming from?
Not me.
Okay,
How much time?
time?
10?
Okay. So and then we come back, then you have,
Do you want mine too, just so you have them all on the list or?
How much time?
Mine are for collective bargaining and performance of a public employee. And I would say 20 for all of them.
okay, so we have executive session, potential litigation for 10 minutes. Then we have executive session, collective bargaining, and performance of a public employee for a total of 20. So we'll take the potential litigation first, and we will do that.
Jessica, you're up.
Yeah, he's on the way.
We're coming. Is Doug still on? He got off with his on. Oh, I know, I have to.
The executive session for potential litigation is getting extended for 15 minutes until 11:35 a.m. Board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:40 a.m. The board is extending the executive session for the performance of a public employee for a period of 15 minutes until 12:15 p.m. The executive session for collective bargaining is now in session for 10 minutes.
Okay, back from executive session. No decisions were made. I'll turn it over to Jessica.
Jessica Warren, Human Resources again. I do have additional requests. The first come from the auditor's office. They are requesting to reclassify their staff accountant to salary grade 540, step 1.
Okay with it?
Okay,
Okay. And then the next item from the auditor's office is creating a new position titled payroll administrator at salary grade 565, which is an exempt level position.
okay,
Also,
And then next item comes from the prosecuting attorney's office. He's requesting to create a new salary classification of senior paralegal at salary grade 27 and to place one of his paralegals at step 2 of the new scale and 2 of his paralegals at step 3 of the new scale.
Good with that.
and the idea was if those steps were not used, they'd be coming in at below what they're currently making. That makes no sense.
Correct, yes. This would give them a little bit of a pay increase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
That's all I have today. Thank you.
okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Remember, we will not be here tomorrow or Wednesday, so we'll be back next Monday, actually, yeah.